supposed to be. Good morning, Professor Ebubechukwu.
Hello.
Thank you for agreeing to do this interview with me. Please introduce yourself to the camera.
Hello. So, hi, I'm Igbo Umeobi. I am a sustainability scholar, which means I study environment and sustainability at the University of Buffalo, and I'm glad to be here.
I'm Emmanuella from Imo State, Nigeria. Where are you from?
Where am I from? I'm from Anambra State, Nigeria. Specifically, I am from Ibuku in Akwata local government.
Oh, I think that's where my mom grew up.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So did she go to the Ibuku girls?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm screaming now. That's actually really cool. That's very cool.
Okay, so during this interview, I'd like to discuss your experience as a Nigerian American and how you learned. You speak Igbo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how you learned Igbo. And so, as background info, how did you learn Igbo? Did you learn from your parents or in schools?
I learned from my parents, and actually, I learned from my parents. I learned from my grandma. I learned from my community. But yes, I learned literacy, the literacy part of Igbo from school. I took Igbo language throughout my junior school in Nigeria. I learned both of that. And the literacy part of Igbo just being the reading and the writing part of Igbo language and idioms, stuff like that.
How'd you learn English?
Did I learn English? I mean,
Was it
the official language of Nigeria is English. I grew up in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria up until my marriage, which means I grew up listening and speaking a bit of not just English and Igbo, but also some Yoruba as well. So I definitely grew up with the community of Igbo speakers in my household.
How do you feel about I know English is the official language of Nigeria. How do you feel about that? Because it wasn't always like that.
I mean, technically Nigeria is a baby country. Nigeria is what, 62 years old? It's a small country, so if we have an official language that is not English, what should it be? And how do we determine if that language is appropriate as the official language? And another thing I do think too is that we can't pick one official language. What should be what? Who should determine it? And all of those things. Crazy politics.
I read an article by a person named Ajunwa Inochi, and she said that how English is an arsenic towards Igbo, and how before it was just straight Igbo language, and now you have she called it English Igbo,
yeah.
Right? And then it evolved to Pidgin English and stuff like that. And she said how it was very toxic and kind of transforming Igbo into what it's not, into something different, to more colonized. So how do you feel about that? Do you know? I know you kind of speak everyone does speak a little Pidgin, but do you how do you feel about that?
First of all, I feel two things. One, Pidgin. Think of Pidgin like Creole. It is a localized version of this official colonial language. So Pidgin actually, for me, if anything, Pidgin could be adopted as an official language because it unifies people more than English does, right? Especially in a place like Nigeria. But Pidgin, to clarify, Pidgin has been influenced by not just Igbo, but also by other languages, random languages. So it's not just even been these three main languages. It's been different languages that have also influenced the way Pidgin is. But back to what you said about English being an arsenic to Igbo language, I would somewhat agree because the post-colonial situation of our Igbo culture we find is one that is driven by the traits that have happened for the past 500 years that have influenced our cultures as it would be, right? Culture is formed by people and people are influenced by economic systems. And so the evolution of the Igbo language that we see now with not just English Igbo, but even with our alphabets, even with old words and understanding, it definitely affects us because a huge part of that, again, is the fact that language is knowledge. Knowledge is embedded in language. And so when you are having chips of parts of your language, you are going to have huge chunks of knowledge that are being missed. So I can say for a fact, especially, and I'm concerned that we do not it's part of what this scholar is saying. Like, I'm concerned that most people know bitter leaf as bitter leaf, but not a lot of people know it as onubu. And knowing it as onubu has a lot more richness. So how much you can apply it, it has a lot more knowledge transfer from the older generations, because they know it as onubu, not bitter leaf, right? So things like this definitely makes English an arsenic to Igbo. I agree. Yeah.
So before we had to write for my like last English paper, we had to write a paper about our language, or like what language means to us, or our like perception of different types of languages. And as like Black people, we use AAVE, African American Vernacular English. Yeah. So like, how do you incorporate that into your English and Igbo? Because an article by can't find her. An article, Black is King, like that references Beyonce and her use of it in her music. So how do you incorporate it into your English and Igbo, and how do you see it within your community?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I love how diverse we are as Black people. Not just, it's something that's peculiar mostly to African Americans, and I think it's important that as much as we are trying to integrate together, I think it's also important to respect our differences. And I say respect because AAV you can see how it has been a result of cultural evolution, which includes language, but fundamentally the experiences that have been by African Americans. I cannot just come and mix that up with Igbo. It's a bit harder. But then again, some parts of AAV are actually influenced by predecessors or ancestors that have been Igbo, right? So I think some parts, and correct me with, maybe in the future correct me with this, but some parts of AAV, you see things like the Black people that were in Virginia, the Virginia plantations, for example. A lot of those Black people were Igbo, right? So their accents, their lingo is most likely influenced by some of this language transmission in Igbo language. And that's beautiful.
Friday, you told me that like you came here for university.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was undergrad or grad.
Grad.
Yeah. So like, how was it like the change from Igbo culture to American culture? Because I saw a video growing up African by a person, I don't know his name, but his tag is A Far Paradise, and he mentioned how like he was bullied. Like, it was like, the video was very playful, but like he was bullied because of the clothes, because of how he smelled, because of the food he ate, and how he talked. So like, how did you like experience that, especially in grad school?
Honestly, for me personally, I've always been I just blend. I think I would say, and I've had to blend even as an Igbo person in Igbo land. I've had to blend. As a Nigerian or as an Igbo person living in Nigeria, I've had to blend. As a Nigerian and Igbo person living in the US, I've had to blend. Like, you adapt, right? But definitely I didn't have any great culture shocks. I had some culture shocks around food. I still have culture shocks around food. But it also doesn't, a key takeaway though, it doesn't diminish my Africanness. If anything, this has actually prompted me to be more proud of being Igbo, of being African. Like, it's maybe a lot more curious even about like my Igbo genealogy, my Igbo cosmology, right? Like, it's been very fascinating personally. I think our differences enhance us in ways that we take for granted.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having this interview with me.
Yeah.
It was very eye-opening because for me, growing up, I was very frustrated because, like, especially my parents, like, they migrated here when my mom was still pregnant with me, so I was born here. And I was, like, the first person in my family to be born in the States. And then I didn't think anything of it, like, when I was younger, but, like, middle school, high school, like, I would meet, like, my parents and then my family, they'd be like, oh, you don't speak Igbo? You're so
yeah,
like,
so you always have to be,
yeah, and I'm like,
yeah.
But you didn't teach me, and I'm here, and my dad enrolled me in this Igbo speaking class, and then I went, and I was eager, and it was like, what, for 3 weeks, and then they just stopped, and I was like, and then my dad was like, oh, they're coming back. It's been 5 years now, and they still haven't done anything. So yeah, it really helped me. Like, I feel like the more you grow, the more you're proud of your culture, because the more you realize that fitting in and all that stuff is not all that.
Yeah, it really isn't, like, for the camera, fuck fitting in, like, sincerely. And I would say, I know I'm saying this, but I'm also trying not to erode my experiences when growing up, because like I said, me too, I went through my own difficulties growing up. As a kid, like, I also had forms of disability that also exacerbated some of these things. But kids are kids. Like, kids are bullies. I don't know. Kids are bullies, and a huge part of that, Igbo language is a language that we consider at risk right now, or endangered, because of the fact that people are not learning it at the rate that they learn other languages. And that's because Igbo language is so difficult that it has to be transferred from parents to child. So there's an inheritance model of Igbo language that you see in other cultures, but like Igbo language sincerely has the inheritance model where you cannot fully learn the language without your parents, right? Or without living in a complete Igbo territory, like in the southeast of Nigeria. And not even in a city, but like in a village proper. So
Thank you for agreeing to do this interview with me again. I really liked hearing about your experiences, and oh yeah, and have a good day.
Thank you for doing this. Honestly, I loved it. Thank you.